Bitcoin is getting squished and squeezed in a tighter and tighter range, and you know what they say. If you squeeze too much, you just might end up in a sticky situation. Sounds like prom night all over again. But the real question is, will Bitcoin continue dropping to our exact target that we talked about yesterday, or has the reversal already begun? And breaking news, senile grandpa that routinely soils his diaper and cannot figure out how to send an email also doesn't understand Bitcoin. In the real direction Bitcoin is headed with increased regulation will tickle your toes and wiggle your other toes. Let's get milking. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Spencer Spladoosh, and I'm here to show you the charts, capture your hearts, and leave your bed sheets even milkier than you could have ever imagined. Absolutely insane, guys. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into Bitcoin's price as we have dropped yet again below 50K. So does that make our target from yesterday's video even more possible? And what exactly would happen on these charts? What would have to happen on these charts for me to think that it is less likely that we are going to be heading down to my target, my exact target that I talked about in yesterday's webisode? So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications only if you are a total and complete savage and you absolutely love big gainers. And without any further skidoo, let's dive on in. Absolute insanity, guys. So like we talked about in yesterday's video of mainstream media and Bitcoin critics always attaching some piece of news to a drop in Bitcoin's price, as they always do, no matter how inaccurate and irrelevant that news that they attach to the price is, which for the most part it's always inaccurate and always irrelevant. Same thing with this. There has never been a shortage of senile grandpas attacking Bitcoin, and this news article is no different. For pizza's sake, this old whippersnapper probably couldn't figure out which hole his electric toothbrush is supposed to go in. So Charlie Munger, the vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, and let's not forget that Berkshire Hathaway has a smaller market cap than Bitcoin. Before we go any further, look at this. Bitcoin with a market cap of 900 billion as I'm recording this video. Berkshire Hathaway, all the itsy bitsy teensy weensy way down here with a measly little 584 billion. Looks like the struggle is real, am I right? Charlie Munger doesn't know what's worse, Tesla at 1 trillion or Bitcoin at $50,000. During an interview at the Daily Journal's annual shareholder meeting, Munger was asked whether he thought it was crazier for Bitcoin to hit 50K or for Tesla to reach 1 trillion, and he said, "Well, I have the same difficulty that Samuel Johnson once had when he got a similar..." You know, these people, they always go off on these little tangents that don't make any sense. I can't decide the order of precedency between a flea and a louse, and I feel the same way about those choices. I don't know which is worse. Well, the dementia must have been kicking in when he was asked that question, because that makes absolutely no sense. I don't think I know what the future of banking is, and I don't think I know how the payment system will evolve, he said. Sounds like somebody we should be taking advice from, or caring about their opinion. I do think that a property-run bank is a great contributor to... So he loves banks, basically. So I don't think Bitcoin is going to end up the medium of exchange for the world. It's too volatile to serve as a medium of exchange. That is not necessarily the angle Bitcoin is trying to fill right now anyway, but let's continue. And it's really kind of an artificial substitute for gold, and since I never buy any gold, I never buy any Bitcoin. Okay, well, at least there's some clarification. He doesn't buy gold or Bitcoin. But then he has another quote where his dementia absolutely kicks into overdrive. Bitcoin reminds me of Oscar Wilde said about fox hunting. He said it was the pursuit of the uneatable by the unspeakable. Charlie, if you're going to do an interview, try to stay on topic. Nobody wants to hear your little fairy tales. And then if we switch to this article here, Bitcoin could become digital gold if volatility and liquidity issues subside with regulatory certainty, according to Bridgewater's Director of Investment Research, Rebecca Patterson. Now this is what I'm talking about. The director said she wouldn't call Bitcoin an alternative currency, but if anything, the better comparison is to gold. Okay, perfectly lining up with what we just read in that previous article. We're not talking about Bitcoin as an alternate currency. Okay, the currency argument for Bitcoin is something that nobody has really been focusing on. If you've been in the space for the last year, the main narrative being pushed is that it is a store of value, right? And with that being said, it makes more sense to compare Bitcoin to gold as opposed to mediums of exchange or other currencies. That is not the angle that Bitcoin has been really pushing for the past year plus. One of the main things they need to see, however, is a lower volatility, which many sources have said, you know, if Bitcoin can capture a $10 trillion market cap similar to gold, then that volatility would heavily decrease. But again, Bitcoin is still, in the grand scheme of things, not that big, okay? We're still fairly early. Bitcoin is still not that big, and it sounds crazy saying that as it has a $1 trillion market cap, as it absolutely has eclipsed the market cap of Berkshire Hathaway, Tesla, Alibaba, even Visa and Facebook, right? But that volatility should decrease as it continues to grow in value. The more you get a regulatory ecosystem developing around Bitcoin and other currencies, the more other types of investors are going to feel comfortable getting in, and that's going to bring liquidity, that's going to reduce volatility. Absolutely agree. So a lot of people look at regulations or new regulations as a bad thing. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what your opinion is, because that is basically the guaranteed next step for Bitcoin. There's probably not going to be less regulation in the future. Okay, we're heading towards a path where ultimately there probably will be more regulation, and it's just something we have to accept and live with, because again, that's the writing is on the wall. I mean, that's basically just what is going to happen with Bitcoin if it gets more and more valuable. Okay, if Bitcoin just stayed at a $1 billion market cap, there would probably be zero regulation because it didn't disrupt anything and it's useless. But because Bitcoin is growing so immensely, we have to expect that there is going to be regulation in the future, and it's not all downside, okay? As we just said, even just from that one sentence, there are some positives to regulation, and we've already seen a lot of that even in the first 2 months of 2021. Now, what in Spladoosh is going on with Bitcoin here? Basically, we're still sitting above the 21-day, which is ultimately bullish, but I personally think this trend for now is going to be to the downside. Very similar, guys, to exactly what we talked about back here. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go on for the exact amount of time and the exact percentage drop, but what I'm saying is this could be more of a downtrend. But the main key takeaway here is if we hold the 21-day moving average, which we did for about a week or two here, and then we broke below it, ultimately found support on the 50-day, and then it was up to new all-time highs. So ultimately, I think that we could see more downside here. Ultimately, I think, again, 42K is a really good bottom area in my opinion. But we also have to keep one thing in mind. Just because Bitcoin has had a pullback for now 3 days and it's going down is not something negative. And people that have been in the space longer than others 100% will tell you that as well. Think of it this way. We're now in a pullback. The last thing we want is for this to be a premature pullback where we just go up again immediately after. That is not healthy, and every single time that I've seen that with price action, with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, it's always been bad, right? If we initiate a pullback and if we start pulling back here, we want that to follow all the way through, okay? And then we inevitably enter a little bit of a sideways area, and then we go on to the next new all-time high. We don't want to have just a little pullback and then immediately start bouncing. That is just a price structure that I've never seen be healthy, especially during all-time high breakouts or blue sky breakouts. It's just better that if we initiate a pullback, we follow all the way through. Bitcoin ultimately tests and finds new support, holds it, cements it, and then blasts off to the next new all-time high. And again, that's just healthier for Bitcoin. So if you want Bitcoin to continue exploding to 60, 70, 80, $100,000 plus per Bitcoin, then I 100% believe that you would also want this pullback to just play out. We don't want this to be a premature pump. Okay, we started a very small pullback. It's only been 3 days. The last thing I want to see is Bitcoin breaking new all-time highs by tomorrow. Okay, I just think that's unsustainable and not good for the long-term health. Because what we want is, we want to see $100,000 plus Bitcoin. We want to see a $300,000 plus Bitcoin. And the best way to attain that is to have real pullbacks, real follow-throughs that could, they could take a week. They could take 3-4 weeks. But that's much better long-term than if we just, pumped new all-time highs tomorrow. So again, we're still just holding above the 21-day. 42 is still the main area I'm looking for there. On some of these short-term charts, we're still getting rejected at the very basic short-term moving averages here. Currently, we recently got rejected around like 49K. So again, I'm not seeing anything super bullish yet. We got rejected at our last Fibonacci level here as well on the 4-hour chart. Yeah, so far, I mean, it just looks pretty good for Bitcoin to continue, maybe consolidating here. I would prefer to see that pullback target here. Again, we could see alts start to run, midway through this Bitcoin pullback. Say this pullback goes on for 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a week, 2 weeks in, that's when we see alts actually start to really perform as well. And then Bitcoin can continue heading up also, very similar to like what we saw back here in January of 2021. But yeah, we have dipped pretty significantly into this EMA ribbon now, and we are below a key fib level. level, about the $49,000 level as well. So, and as well, breaking 50K was another big, huge level. We did not reclaim 50K, you can see on this chart. We very briefly got above it, but we got rejected on even the 50 moving average here on this 1 hour chart. So again, in my opinion, momentum is still swinging to the downside. Again, this is not going to play out over the next 24 hours. It's probably going to take at least a few days before we definitively know what direction Bitcoin's going. But yeah, like I said, you know my opinion. You know what I think would be better. You know what I think is more likely. And yeah, I just think ultimately, if we want to hit maybe even 6-digit Bitcoin by April of this year, then exactly what we want is we want this pullback to continue. We want to find a very strong bottom, and we can just reset some of these momentum indicators as well. Also, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit that like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications as well. If you're interested in trading, make sure to take advantage of our Bybit and Femex deposit bonuses below. Never trade more than you're willing to lose. I personally would recommend never trading more than 5 to 10% of your portfolio maximum. And yeah, that's it for me. Bye-bye.